Hey guys, it's Sagar, and in my 12th video, we are taking a detailed look at the cameras on this Realme 9 Pro Plus. It's clear that Realme wanted the cameras to be the most talked feature of this 9 Pro Plus. So to make sure of that, first they removed the useless 2MP black and white sensor from this phone. And then they stopped playing the megapixel war and included a 50MP Sony IMX766 sensor as the primary camera. This is the same sensor that we see on some of the higher priced phones, and it comes with a feature that we don't normally see on phones in this price range: optical image stabilization. And boy, it is one of the most talked feature on this phone, and not in a good way. More on that later. Now we have over 80 image and video samples from all the cameras on this Realme 9 Pro Plus. But before we get to those, let us check out the rest of the cameras that we are working with. We already saw that the main camera gets a 50MP Sony IMX766 sensor with OIS. It also gets f1.8 aperture and 24mm lens. Next up, there is an 8MP sensor with f2.2 aperture and a 16mm ultra-wide-angle lens. Finally, we have a 2MP sensor with f2.4 aperture, and this one gets a macro lens. You can shoot 4K videos at 30fps with the main rear camera. These videos get OIS for stabilization. 1080p 30fps videos get OIS plus EIS for stabilization, which makes these videos look more stable. At the front, there is a 16MP camera with f2.4 aperture and 27mm lens, and it can shoot 1080p videos at 30fps. You get a Pro mode in the camera app where you can change all settings according to your liking. The range for ISO in this mode is from 100 to 6400, and the range for shutter speed is from 1/8000th of a second all the way up to 32 seconds. In the film mode, you get all these settings while shooting videos as well. Other than this, the camera interface is like most of the other Realme phones, so we won't be spending too much time talking about it. Something that I do want to spend time on is the OIS feature. There has been a lot of talk about it just working in photos mode or only working while shooting 1080p videos. No one really seems to have a clear idea of what's happening. So to check it out, here is what I did. I turned on the cameras app and put it in the photos mode. Here we can clearly see the lens element inside the main camera move around as I am shaking the phone, which means OIS is working while shooting images, which makes a big difference in low lighting conditions. Then I switched it to the video mode and started shooting in 1080p resolution. And as I started shaking the phone a bit, we again see the lens element move around to compensate for the shakes. So it is clearly working while shooting 1080p videos. I did the same for 4K videos, and you can again see the lens element move around, which means OIS is working for shooting 4K videos as well. So now that we know it's working, let's check out how much of a difference does it make. Which means for this video, we are starting by checking the video performance of this Realme 9 Pro Plus. Here is a 4K 30fps video from the main camera. OIS is working here, but as you can see, the video is still a bit jittery. There is a wobbly effect with each step that I take. While this video might not look the best, it is definitely not the worst. Here's a 4K video from the main camera of the Xiaomi 11i Hypercharge for comparison. Now that phone doesn't have OIS, and you can see its video is all over the place. And as you can probably tell, 9 Pro Plus's video looks much better in comparison. 1080p videos get both EIS and OIS for stabilization, and you can see it looks so much smoother. You do gain smoothness at this resolution, but you lose out on a lot of details compared to the 4K video. So if you have a steady pair of hands and if you are a bit soft with your steps, I think you will really like the 4K video coming out of this phone. Wide camera is limited at shooting 1080p videos, and its videos also get electronic stabilization. Due to this, there is a significant crop in the videos from this ultra-wide lens. Actually, there is also a good amount of crop while shooting 1080p videos with the main camera. Here, I have a few frame grabs. This is 1080p video from the main camera. This one is 1080p video from the ultra-wide camera, and here is a 4K video frame from the main camera. So as you can see, 1080p videos are heavily cropped in. In fact, 4K video frame is just as wide as 1080p video from the ultra-wide angle lens. You need to keep this in mind while framing your videos with this Realme 9 Pro Plus. If you shoot videos for a long time, you will notice the back of this phone get pretty warm, and this will be felt even more in the next few months as hot summer is approaching us. So just be aware about this if you plan on shooting videos with this phone. So now that you have looked at the results, what do you guys feel about the OIS on this main camera and overall videos from this phone in general? Let me know in the comments. If you have liked this video so far, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. That way, you won't miss out on any of the amazing videos coming up on this channel. With that, let's move on to the images, starting with the daytime shots. We have already seen this 50MP sensor on much higher priced phones, so we know that it can capture amazing details, and we see the same in these shots. The main camera captures a lot of information and details in each of these shots. It's a 50 megapixel sensor, but these are 12.6 megapixel pixel bin shots from it. When you take these shots, they might look a bit extra crispy or sharp on the screen of your phone, but on a bigger display, they don't look overly sharp. If I zoom in on these shots, they hold on to the details to some extent, but we also see a lot of noise everywhere. This is not just with the images in shadows, but we see this noise in bright areas of an image as well. I don't think the image sensor is to be blamed here. It is doing its job and capturing a ton of details. But I think it's the ISP on the MediaTek Dimensity 920 processor which is not able to handle all that information really well. We have seen this again and again that the Dimensity processors don't have the best image processing. MediaTek really needs to fix this soon. That being said, I'm just trying to nitpick here, and these images actually look really good if you don't zoom in on them this far. The colors in these shots look good for the most part, but they don't accurately represent how the scene looked in real life. These images actually turned out to be a lot more saturated than how the scene looked with my eyes. Normally, I like to see true to life colors in my images, but I also understand that many people like to see saturated colors with more contrast in their shots. These images also look more lively, and thanks to the extra bit of contrast, there also seems to be a good amount of depth in these shots. I say this in all my camera reviews. Everyone perceives color in a different way, and whether or not you will like the colors in these images will depend on your personal preference. These photos were shot with the AI mode turned off. If you want, you can turn it on and the colors will be boosted even more. Here are a few examples where you can see the difference in the images with and without the AI mode. The HDR mode on this phone is pretty aggressive. It brings up a lot of details from the shadows while trying to preserve as many details as possible from the brighter parts of the image. Here are how the images look with and without the HDR mode turned on. You can clearly see that the HDR mode makes a big difference in these shots. As you can see, there is a bright sun in the shot, but we can still see so many details in the building and in the water. Like with normal shots, there is a lot of noise in the darker areas, but in these situations, this is to be expected out of any phone in this price range. For this shot, it did so well to capture enough information from both the shadowed area as well as the brighter part outside the window. In this particular shot, the HDR mode did fire up, but because of some reason, it just did not bring up enough details on the shadows. So the HDR mode on this phone is good, but it is a bit inconsistent. I still kept it on auto for most of my shots, but when the lighting conditions were harsh, I reviewed every shot which I took just to check if any shot was overprocessed and if I had to take another one with the HDR mode turned off. Before we move on to the close-up shots, here's a quick focusing speed test from the main camera. It is quick to switch the focus from a near to a far object and then back again. This becomes very important while taking close-up shots. You don't want the phone to keep on hunting for focus, as that might add in a lot of time to your photo shoots. Now the close-up shots look really good from this phone. The subject is in sharp focus, and since we have a big sensor and a wide aperture, the background in these shots get a very nice and natural optical blur. There is a bit of sharpness added to these close-up shots, but they look fine unless you zoom in on them 2 to 3 times. The sensor is fairly big, so you might still run into a bit of fringing if you are too close to your subject. But it's not as bad as it was on the 108 megapixel sensor on the Realme 8 Pro last year. If you are tapping on your subject while taking these close-up shots, just make sure to bring the brightness slider down a bit, as this phone tends to overexpose the shot when you tap to focus on any nearby object. There is a 2 megapixel macro camera which will let you get even closer to your subjects. These images might look okayish if you take them with steady pair of hands and in plenty of light. But in the last couple of years, we have seen much higher resolution macro cameras which can get even closer to your subject. So these 2 megapixel macro cameras just don't impress us anymore. It's a humble request to all the manufacturers that at least give us a 5 megapixel sensor behind this lens, which will make these images somewhat usable. You have seen this shot before. This is how much of the scene the primary camera will let you get in the shot. But if you want to capture more of the same scene and there is not enough space to move back, switch to the ultra-wide angle lens, and this is how much more of the scene it will let you get in the shot. This ultra-wide lens lets you show the scale of things and capture a different perspective of the same scene without moving a step. There is just an 8 megapixel sensor behind this lens, so there is very little information in these shots. The center of the frame is fairly sharp, but the sharpness and details fade as you move towards the edges. You will even see a bit of distortion and artifacting towards the edges of these shots. So as cool as these wide shots look, you should use this mode sparingly and make sure to stay away from it when the lighting condition is anything less than ideal. There is also a 2x button on the viewfinder, but we don't get a 2x telephoto lens on this Realme 9 Pro Plus. So what this mode is doing is digitally cropping in on the images from the main sensor. When clicked in ample light, you will see surprising amount of details in these shots. The 2x shots have extra bit of processing because these shots look much sharper. Here is how the normal shot captured with the main camera cropped in looks like, and here is how the 2x shot looks. you can clearly see a difference in these images. The one which I clicked in the 2x mode is so much sharper. Maybe when we switch to this mode, the phone is switching to the 50 megapixel mode and zooming in on that shot instead of zooming in on the pixel binned one, which makes these zoomed in shots look so much better. Speaking of the 50 megapixel mode, here are how those images look when compared side by side with the 12.6 megapixel pixel binned ones. Other than slightly overexposed sky in the 50 megapixel shot, you might not be able to tell too many differences in these shots from so far. But if I zoom in 5 times on these shots, we can see the 50 megapixel one having so much more details while the 12.6 megapixel one just looks muddy. It is no surprise that the 50 megapixel image looks more detailed. There is literally 4 times more information in these shots and we can easily see that if we zoom in. But this is also true that without zooming in at least 2 to 3 times, you can barely see any difference between these images. Now you can switch to the 50 megapixel mode when you are trying to capture some landscape or architecture because you need extra bit of details in those shots, or when you know that you might want to zoom in on a particular part of an image later on. For everything else, I think you should stick to the default 12 megapixel mode. 50 megapixel shots are huge in terms of file size, and if you click all of your images in this resolution, your phone's internal storage will be filled up in no time. Well, this and the fact that the high resolution mode doesn't capture best dynamic range and there is a lot of noise in these shots if the lighting is anything less than ideal. Portrait mode is the most important mode for me on any phone. While these portrait shots turned out to be good, I'm not too happy with the edge detection of these shots. It misses out on too many parts of the subject and for some reason it takes a lot of time to detect the edges. Very often, the background wouldn't even be blurred out, so I had to go back and take the shot again. This happened on more than one occasion, so taking portrait shots with this phone takes a lot of time and efforts. Do with this information what you may, but this is one of the reasons I didn't take a lot of portrait shots with this phone even when I had people in the shot. When the edge detection is right and the background is blurred out, the subject in these portrait shots appear to be a bit too sharp. There is a beauty or skin smoothing option, and this is again one of those phones where I suggest you to keep this option turned on but on a lower setting. Edge detection gets surprisingly better while taking portrait shots of objects. For some reason, it even detects the edges of objects much faster while clicking portraits of objects. This gives me hope that with updates, the portrait mode could get better for taking portraits of people as well. That brings us to the images which I took in artificial and lower lighting conditions. Big image sensor, wide aperture and OIS are the ingredients needed for good low light images, and this Realme 9 Pro Plus gets all of this. It is one of the rare phones in under 25,000 rupees which is not a pain to shoot images with in these lighting conditions. There is obviously some noise in these shots, but thanks to OIS, the overall images look really good. There really wasn't a lot of light here, but you can see how good these images turned out. These images are not the sharpest, but you will still find respectable details even as I zoom in on them. If you feel these images don't look good enough, or if you want even brighter images, switch to the night mode and that makes the images look so much better. These images are not just brighter, but the colors also look better when the night mode is turned on. Some of these images look a bit too flat, to a point that they might be considered to be a bit faded. This doesn't happen too often, so I would still consider these night mode images to be well above average. Like with most phones, these night mode shots take a few moments to capture, so it is best to capture static scenes in this mode. If you have people in your night shot, ask them to be very still or else they will be blurred out. These night mode shots might not look as good as from some of the flagship phones, but I think almost everyone getting this phone will like the night shots coming out of it. That brings us to the front facing camera. This 60 megapixel sensor is nothing out of the ordinary. It takes good images and gets the job done. At 27mm focal length, the frame is a bit tighter compared to most of the other phones. By default, the beauty mode is turned on, so selfies might be a bit too soft. If you want sharper looking selfies, make sure to turn the beauty or skin smoothing mode off. You will also need to have a bit stable hands, as even a slightest shake might result in a blurry looking shot even during the daytime. Edge detection is really accurate while taking portrait selfies. It is much better and faster than while taking portraits with the rear camera. Although this is a 16 megapixel selfie camera, these selfies don't look as sharp as you would expect. And again, it gets the beauty mode turned on by default. So for slightly more details in your portrait selfies, make sure to turn it off. Here's a video from the front facing camera of the Realme 9 Pro Plus. You can see how it is handling the overall colors of the scene, exposure and stabilization when I'm walking around with it. Overall, I really like the cameras on this phone. If I'm being honest, the main camera is doing most of the heavy lifting, and rightly so since most of the people will be using this camera most of the time. OIS is there, but it works best while taking images and it is not that good while shooting videos, but technically it does work. Looking at the price range, I'm really impressed with these cameras. I don't think you will find a better set of cameras than this right now under 25,000 rupees. I said this before and I'm saying it again. Don't go on the OIS marketing hype that surrounds this phone and you will be just fine. This is what I feel about these cameras. But you guys saw the image and video samples too, so what do you think about them? Let me know in the comments. In coming videos, I'm going to compare cameras on this phone with some of the other ones which I have, so make sure you have the notifications for this channel turned on. That is it for this video guys. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for a lot more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.